Good morning and welcome to the Isn't It Time Facebook Live show today. We are talking today women in leadership, the facts, the possibilities and the challenges. Lovely that you're here. Great you can join me. We've got a few tech issues today. We're going to have to race through this really quickly. I've had some, I've been in different airports the last little while. And of course, you know, guess who leaves a battery charger for the computer plugged into one of the places? I don't know which one, but it's there. And anyway, we can see it all together. So I'm a bit maybe not quite with it this morning. We've had I've been different time zones, and isn't it funny? Even it's just 2 hours. I was in Auckland. I was in Melbourne last weekend and came home. Was home for a night. Flew to Auckland. And that 2 hour time difference can really mess around with your head. When I considered, I was waking up at 5 o'clock, but it was actually 3 o'clock Queensland time. So I was not very with it yesterday afternoon, but I'm certainly back again. And today I'm going to be actually sharing with you the presentation that I did in New Zealand and some information about a brand new program. And so morning, Donna. Yeah, it's raining here too. I seem to I've had my winter in 1 week this year. Morning, Debbie. Lovely to have you here. Yeah, so Melbourne was cold, but nice. Yeah, it is actually, Donna. It is. I was just last night I couldn't figure out where I was, and then I woke up this morning at about 3:30, and then I realised it was 5:30 New Zealand time, so I just gotten into that. So it was cold in Melbourne, and it was cold when I got back to the Gold Coast, and then it was cold in Auckland. So I've arrived and it's here cold again. So I feel like winter jammed when 1 week, but at least we had to have it, and let's hope and pray that this rain is actually reaching those who really, really do need it. I know I'm just looking at our pool at the moment. It's chock-a-block. And, of course, my husband's had a great excuse not to mow the lawn these last 2 weeks. Whatever it takes. Righto, we're going to be, I'm going to be sharing with you today excerpts from the keynote address I did in New Zealand, which was absolutely fantastic. Great response. We had about 500 people in the room. It was just received so well. And so I'm going to be sharing a little bit about it and then about the new program at the end. And actually, I've been working on the new program now for about 3 months, I guess. So what was really interesting about this Women in Leadership, the facts, the challenges and the possibilities, is that after I'd completed everything, and I'd actually sent my presentation off to the organisers in Auckland. Then the leadership spill occurred here, and it was really interesting. It was literally life imitating art. I could take each of the bits of the presentation and place it on top of exactly what happened. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. A little bit of story and history around it, and I'm just hoping that my computer is going to last. Oh, who leaves their charger behind in an airport? Really? I think we're good. We're at 90%, so we should be good. All right. I guess the challenges that we're going to look at in women in leadership is first we've got to look at gender equality. Now, there's something about this women in leadership that's really kind of been, I think, challenging me. When I actually looked at the stats of where we are in women in leadership, I was really shocked. There was a part of me that believed that we as women were actually getting better in leadership, but the statistics are actually showing, in fact, we're not. And in fact, Australia slips way behind many other developed countries when it comes to women in leadership, and especially when it comes to equal pay, equal opportunity, and political empowerment. So the World Economic Forum releases a report every year on kind of the state of the nation. Where do countries sit as far as gender equity? And we can't kind of talk about women in leadership until we talk about gender equity and gender equality. Morning, Sandy. So I guess for me, I felt we would be quite up there when it comes to the statistics. What was interesting enough, currently, Australia is ranked number 35 in the world when it comes to gender equality. Now, Australia and New Zealand, many of the developed countries, rank very highly in equal opportunity as when it comes to education, which is great. We all know that, and especially now with STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics that we're introducing into schools. That's, again, we're right up there when it comes to that. And so the World Economic Forum rates us on 4 issues. So education availability for girls is one. So we're right up there, number 1, with a number of, as I said, another number of other developed countries. Yeah, exactly. Don, I want to get to that in a minute. I want to talk about that because that's a very interesting point. The statistics here, that what you're talking about, is not about, it's not about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not it. This is about corporations. This is about those women who are in the boardroom. In fact, Australia in 2006 was ranked number 16 in the world. We are now number 35, and these are the latest statistics. And when we come to, this is equal pay, equal opportunity, equal pay. This is where women are CEOs at board level, and we've slipped, and I'll share with that why that's happened. This is about political empowerment, where we rank in the world on the number of women who represent us in Parliament, and the number of women who have held a position of leader of a state. We're talking about prime ministers. So those are the stats that we're working on for this. Now, a number of women are leaving corporate to go into entrepreneurship because of this issue. Now, the problem with that is that we have large corporations who are being defined by a different set of values. And for many women, they don't want to get into entrepreneurship. They want to stay in corporate. So we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to share a little bit about that. Yeah, less pay. And, you know, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. Currently in Australia, it will take an extra 52 days a year. A woman actually has to work an extra 52 days a year to have the same amount of income as a man. Now, when I was at this conference on Thursday doing my keynote, I had a lot of people come up and talk to me afterwards. They actually did a survey within their organisation. This is educational leaders working in other than teachers. And the majority of women were shocked at how much money the men were making compared to them for exactly the same amount of work. Now, I have had a conversation with a woman just recently who's head of she's a national news director for a large media organisation. And on average, the men in her newsroom are paid often as up to $30,000 a year more than the women. Now, there is some seniority we're talking about, but she said from the perspective of equal pay for equal work, there is just such a disparity. And that really shocked me. There were some interesting statistics from the US that showed that a girl walking out of college with a college degree and a guy walking out of college with a degree would earn at least $5,000 a year less than the man. How is this still happening? I don't understand. Elisa Wilkinson, classic example. And you know, I have daughters. So I thought this was changing. But currently, the current stats put the worldwide global gender equity, worldwide we're talking, is going to take over 200 years to reach. That means I'm not going to see it in my lifetime, nor are my daughters going to see it. And so, these are the stats. These are, I've spent probably almost 2 months doing the research on this presentation. And I've got to say, I'm like, what? I think when we fought for this in the 70s, I thought this was totally different. Now, I just want to switch then now quickly to the issue of women in boardrooms, so CEOs, what's happening in that area. So Gail Kenny, when she stepped out of Gail Kelly, I'll get it right in a minute, I'm still on New Zealand time. Gail Kelly, when she stepped out of Westpac, Indira Nooyi from Pepsi, who has been in that role, CEO of Pepsi for 12 years, both those women stepped down. They were replaced by men. So I'm going to share a little bit why that happens, why we're not reaching down enough to help out. But I also want to go to political empowerment, and this is where this played out with the leadership spill. Currently in political empowerment, where that means the number of women representing us per head of population, per capita, plus the number of years we've had a female head of state, in other words, prime minister. This is not a premier, because we have premiers. This is head of state. We sit at number 48 in the world. We have had one female leader, and we all know who that is, Julie Gillard, and she was in leadership for 3 years and 2 days to be exact. Where does New Zealand sit? Now, this was interesting because I was presenting in New Zealand. I wanted to present the stats. New Zealand sits at currently number 9. And they're in the top 10 in the world in in gender equity. Their economic participation and opportunity sits at number 23. And remember, this is based on women in CEO. Now, they've slipped 2 points, which is really interesting from last year. But political empowerment was driving them up, and they sit number 12 in the world. Now, the top countries in the world are the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, and there's a lot of issues that they bring in, free childcare, a lot of free schooling. They have also longer maternity leave and paternity leave, and that we're going to be talking about. So the female New Zealand, I think, as I said on the week at the presentation, we are all watching Jacinda Ardern at the moment, because she is truly, sorry, it's my daughter messaging me. She is truly breaking all the rules, and we're watching her and to see what she does and why this is so different in New Zealand. Very interesting stuff. We really sad that we can't beat them in rugby. We're not beating them in this other. So a little cheer went around the room when I issued those states. Now, here's the issues as I'm seeing them. There's a number of issues at play. Number one is what we call unconscious bias. Now, unconscious bias is where we have the beliefs that sit underneath the beliefs. So, yeah, exactly. They're the beliefs that sit underneath the beliefs. So they're the beliefs that we'll say things like they always. Boys will be boys. Girls are better at multitasking. Now, when it comes to the unconscious bias, it also exists within ethnic groups. You may have this thing that goes on in your mind when you hear a story about a certain ethnic group, for instance, and you'll immediately switch to, oh, yeah, they're always like that. That's unconscious bias. Now, what happened in the leadership spill in Australia just recently, where Julie Bishop, the Deputy Prime Minister, and has been in that role for 11 years. 11 years. Now, she's also been our most popular foreign minister, and she's an extremely tough negotiator. In fact, Peter Gretzky, do you remember Peter Gretzky? He was jailed in Egypt as the journalist with the number of other journalists. He ranks her as incredibly tough negotiator. He'd still be there if it wasn't for her. Now, when all this was going on, the key words that Scott Morrison used when he stood up and had won the election for the Prime Minister, won the party room vote, he said we needed strong leadership. Now, here is a woman who's been in that role for 11 years. News polls had put her as more popular than any of the others. If she'd stepped in, the Liberal Party would have been more popular, ranked much higher. But instead, in the party room, the party, the members of the party were asked to vote with their heads, not their hearts. Now, there's unconscious bias happening straight there. Okay, so we want a strong leader. That must mean a man. And, it was interesting watching this as these two guys stood up. And, I'm not talking about whether you believe in the party or not. I'm looking at this totally from an unconscious bias perspective. When I looked at Scott Morrison being interviewed, the white shirt, the tie, the strength, it was like it's playing itself out. Here it is. What's coming out of it is that in this party room, the Liberal Party, is that they honestly do not believe, they like women leaders, but they don't believe they are strong enough. And that's what the judgment comes at. I'm jumping all over the place here, but it was really interesting to watch this. Now, the second aspect of this, which is really, I think, really interesting, was some statistics that showed women who are in deputy leadership roles. So we're going to talk Julia Gillard, we're going to talk Hillary Clinton, and now Julia Gillard. And this survey or this study was talked about. Sheryl Sandberg talked about this in LinkedIn, Lean In. Studies have shown that women who are in deputy leader positions hold incredible popularity. Then they step into leadership roles, and they are judged on way different criteria. Now, I read an article about Julie Bishop in one of the national papers, and the paragraph said, you know, she cuts a stylish, cuts a stylish persona as she walks across the green Parliament, the green carpet of Parliament House in her $1,500 Christian Louboutin red sole shoes. She jogs with celebrities and wears the latest in workout gear. The hell's that? So we judge women on very different criteria. We judge women. Men are judged on strong leadership, decisiveness, ability to make quick decisions, good networking, i.e. golf, and dedication to work, i.e. they work hard and long. Women are judged on looks, age, weight, motherhood or not, children or not, too emotional, and that's played out this week with Julia Banks making statements about being bullied, and the old stalwarts of the party said you got to roll with the punches, and if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. She's called it. That's exactly right, Donna. No wonder we have image issues. Do you know, when Julia Gillard, rightly or wrongly, I'm not talking about policies or anything else, but I'm talking about when she got into Parliament or came in as Prime Minister, immediately she was judged on why she wasn't married, why she's chosen not to have children, why her partner was a hairdresser. Go figure. She was judged on the size of her bottom, what she wore, her hairstyle. All of a sudden, women become this fodder. Now, Lisa Wilkinson and Carl Stefanovic talked about that. Remember when he wore the suit for 352 days? The whole year he wore the same suit and nobody commented. But when Lisa Wilkinson wore the same outfit twice, they talked about it. Yeah, exactly, Donna. Who cares? Absolutely. But, the challenge is that our children are watching this. Now, if we're going to encourage women into leadership, we've got to change this unconscious bias. We've got to change that, because what happens in the unconscious bias is women are automatically judged on how they look and how they present. And that moves into the next one, which is called sabotage threat. Now, what happens with sabotage threat is when we try so hard not to be a certain stereotype that we become it. So for many women in leadership, they don this suit of armor. They have to put on this tough exterior, trying so hard to be like a man. Tough, strong, decisive. Women bring, true, Sandy. Women bring to the party extraordinary leadership, extraordinary strengths, compassion, empathy, intuition, be able to listen. And what's happening is that the women who are getting into leadership roles now have to don this other side. Now, I'm not anti-men. In fact, to me, we have to stop talking about smashing ceilings. We have to start talking about building bridges, because we cannot make change within our organizations and our world unless we have the 50% of those people. Exactly. That's right. Men own. Let me go. My daughter's in media. Oh, I can tell. Well, that's a whole nother, Facebook Live. Oh my God, what goes on behind the scenes. But let me get back to this. We've got to have men on our side, because I'm very fortunate. I know many of you who listen to this each week are fortunate to have been surrounded by great men, really good men. It's interesting, isn't it? Because when we're talking about unconscious bias, and a lot of the research has shown that women who are mentored by men and women do much better. They have great success. In fact, the national media, the news director I was talking to was telling me she's got both. She's got a male mentor and a female mentor. And she said, I've actually become a better leader through having my male mentor, because he continually tells me to be myself. He can see where I'm trying to be what I'm not, and I'm taking on a different style of leadership. And she said it's just been wonderful for her. Now, when my husband and I were talking about unconscious bias and how women need male leaders, and Jerry said, well, what could I possibly do to help a woman? And I said, you've sold hundreds of millions of dollars in commercial real estate. You have this enormous amount of knowledge to help a woman aspiring to be in real estate. And he said, unconscious bias. I went straight there. He said, I went straight to what would I have to offer a woman. The last thing I want to talk about in this role, and the biggest thing that came out of this, oh my gosh, and I'll tell you, when I shared this on Thursday, man, you could have heard a pin drop. It was like, oh my goodness, one of the greatest threats faced by women in leadership is what I call sabotage by the sisterhood. That so many women have spoken to me about, not the challenges of working with men, the challenges of working with women. They are the greatest challenge. And isn't that interesting? So I did quite a bit of research on that, and came across a study called Black Sheep Syndrome. Now, isn't it interesting how we talk about, we talk about the black sheep syndrome. Isn't it interesting? Everything we talk about women is about animals. There's a queen bee syndrome, the black sheep syndrome. We call women, what we call some of these women, female version of a dog. But the black sheep syndrome is where women who get to the position of leadership in their organization have actually really had to struggle to get there. And what happens is they don't want to reach back down to help other women for two reasons. One, they have to stay so focused on their game, like really focused on their game to stay there. Exactly, Sandy. The other thing is they don't want to be seen as giving a woman a hand up. They don't want to make it easier for these women. Now, interesting, I'm having lunch with a fabulous woman who's been a CEO, just an amazing woman, next week, I'm thinking. And we talked about this, and she was saying, she sees it. She said, there's some really good women out there who are mentoring other women, but not enough. Not when they get to that C-suite, the CEO suite, not when they get to that. So there are issues that are going on, that the challenges we have as women, I believe, the only way we're going to make a change is that we have to make a change within us. We have to show these strong leadership styles. We've got to start talking about this with our daughters and our sons, because men have much issues with gender at the moment, as we do, because our boys in particular are now growing up in a generation where they're not going to marry girls who are going to come home and do the housework. They're not going to do that. There's so many things I want to talk about, but I'm very aware we've only got 6 minutes to go. I just wanted to share with you a brand new program I've started. I'm going to pop the link here for you to have a look at. And it's called Courageous Feminine Leadership. I have been working on this for a few months now. I launched it at the event. I have two things. I work with women leaders on an 8-week program, and I also go now into corporations. Interestingly enough, I've had just amazing bookings for workshops to go in and work in organizations, and that's what they focus at the moment. Cultural change for women starts with women being the change. Spot on, Donna. It does. And what was really inspiring for me on Thursday was the number of people, that came up to me and said they were in tears when they realized what was going on. A number of people said they were in tears. And the number of men who approached me afterwards to come into work in their organizations, but who said, one man said to me, and it came up when he was doing sort of the thank you, yeah, that'd be great, Sandy. He came up to me and said, I was so moved by that presentation. I'm a father and a husband and a CEO. And he said, when you was telling me about those stats, it just gives me shivers even thinking about it. He made me quite teary about it. He said, when you told me those stats, he said, I was shocked. He said, I just assumed as a father, I didn't really have a lot to give my daughters as far as mentorship in business. He said, I've just realized I need to sit down and talk to them and mentor them. They're older girls. And the conversations with Jerry and I and our girls and David have changed when we realize if we're going to make this change, we have to begin one organization at a time. That's it. And we've got to look at gender inequality. What are we teaching our boys? What are we teaching our girls? I've been asked to come and do a presentation in Sydney for a school that is predominantly a boys' school, and then they bring girls in year 10, 11, 12. And they've asked me to come down and work with their kids, which I'm thrilled about, and do a presentation down there. Because we've got to have the boys on our side. I really feel for men at the moment, and I feel for young men at the moment, because they're coming into a different generation. And part of the issue with all this leadership that's happening is that women are isolated on this. There's very few women at the top. And Brene Brown talks about this. She talks about Brave in her book, Brave in the Wilderness, how we need tribe. We have change happening. And, I know in my role, I don't have women I look up to, I'm a bit older, because the generation changed or tried to in 1970. I didn't realize we were still so far behind the 8 ball. Australia, fancy us being number 35. I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked. But boy, has the conversation changed. Man, oh man, I think I did more talking after the presentation. People kept coming up to me, oh my God, this is so true. We have to make the change. And it's interesting. I've been doing a lot of media on this in the last little while, and I had a talkback radio host, actually, it's on my page somewhere. I might pop it up again. And he said to me 10 seconds before we were about to go to air, as I did a media release that said why we don't like women leaders. Oh, it'd be a bit challenging and, controversial. And he said 10 seconds before we go to air, I don't agree with you. I'm going to argue with you. Rightio, baby. You're talking to mum of a young man with autism. You can argue with me all you like. Bring it on. It was really wonderful, though. His questions were so intelligent and powerful and interesting, and we had a great, robust conversation at the end of it. He said, I want you back, get you back on again and talk about this. This has been brilliant. So we've got to change the conversation. We have to talk about bringing men and women together, because we are surrounded by fabulous men. We truly are. We have, and this much of this stuff, remember, is unconscious bias. It's unconscious. We don't know what we doing, and I can go a whole lot of topic. I'd love to do a whole show on unconscious bias, because boy, has that ever played out this week, and particularly when it came to that bullying. When Julia Banks called out the bullying, I want to go back to that, because that played this out brilliantly. I was in Melbourne last week, and Andrew Bolte, who's a very right-wing conservative commentator, wrote a full-page article in the Sunday paper in Melbourne about why she shouldn't have come out with this, and why she didn't, why she just has to roll with it because that's politics. I was so incensed when I read it. I was really cranky. She called it, good for her, what courage it took for her to stand up and say, I was bullied and I'm not putting up with it and I'm leaving. She is a smart. Yeah, exactly, Sandy. Oh, yeah, man. Do you know what it is? Let's talk about Julia Banks for a minute. She's a smart, intelligent woman, and she said, you know what? I don't have to put up with this, and I'm not going to. So I'm quitting. Good for her. And the Labor Party, Tanya Plibersek came out and said, if that had happened in the Labor Party, Penny Wong would be on it. This wouldn't happen. The Liberal Party, they've let her for a week and a half. She's got to roll with punches. I'm going to do within the party. Rubbish. If we're going to stop bullying, we need to stop it, at that level. Oh, I just think she's wonderful. I truly, truly wish she's wonderful. Guys, you know what? It's 8:01. I could go on forever. I really would love you to check out the sallythibault.com.au/leadership. There are two there. There's you can talk to me about one-on-one, an 8-week program. I do one-on-one coaching for women in leadership who are currently in corporate or in areas where they want to work on their leadership. The other one is the workshops that I'm currently doing. There are two aspects to the workshops. One is for students. That's one. And then the other one is for workplace. And so, have a chat with me. You can click on a link there, but I'd love you to share this out. This women on this call every single week, you guys are the change. You are the change. The only way we're going to change this is through us. Stephen Covey talks about this in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about the difference between circle of concern and circle of influence. Our circle of influence is this big. Our circle of concern is that big. Our focus can't be on circle of concern. Our circle of influence is where we make the difference, on the people we talk to every single day, on our families, on our children. We can be concerned with what's happening in the world and rail again and say, how are we going to get to below 30 and blah, 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 blah. By the way, chances are we've slipped. As I said, 2006, we were number 16 in the world. Rwanda is ahead of us. Rwanda, Trinidad and Tobago. Australia, I think the US is number 36. We're number 35. And why our girls are paid so much less than boys? Why is that? That floored me. It absolutely floored me that today my daughters are being paid less than the boys her own age. Now, the other aspect of that, before I finish, I want to say that talk about flexibility. Yeah, it's shocking, Donna. The other thing that came out in the research was this flexibility. Women, we have the babies, we have wombs, and so we're going to take time out of our careers. And a woman on average is going to lose out in superannuation. So she's going to retire with less than a man, not only being paid less, but because she has to usually step out of her career, her superannuation goes down. So this is long-term stuff. It's amazing. And as I mentioned, a lot of women I've spoken to, younger ones, talk about the challenge with childcare. They step out, they can't afford childcare many times, so they stay home. Now, some choose to, as I did. I chose to stay home. I wanted to stay home. Glad I did. But, it also impacted on our income. And, look at my superannuation. It's way less than my husband's, rightly or wrongly. A lot of women, struggle when that happens because down the 8 ball, right down the end of it, we're behind the 8 ball. Who can believe that this is going on now? Who can believe in 2018 this is happening now? Incredible. So check out the link to that. Please share this. Please share this with somebody that you know. I'm on just a real mission, and I've got to tell you, I was really amazed at the feedback that I got from this keynote presentation. The things that are happening are just amazing since I've done this. Some doors are just opening up big time. We need to talk about this. I know. Yeah. I know, Donna, I'm like, oh my God. But you know what? I was a child of the 70s. You know, I was too young to burn my bra. Didn't even have one. But I so wanted to burn my bra. I didn't have one. But do you know what I mean? Like and it's for me, this is about my son and my daughters. This is about what they will share with their children. This is the legacy. We all are leading. This is the legacy. And if we can make a change in our small circle of influence, the ripple effect will be amazing. It will be absolutely amazing. And we've got to stand up and say something, you know. We've got to say, me too, love the 70s. I know, right, Donna? I know, right? Bring back the 70s, I say. Bell bottom flares. Oh, it was great. Music was fantastic. Interesting. Oh, my, all right. We're really at the end. We're 8:06. I know. Look, honestly, I could go on and on about this. But I think I'll stay on this topic for a little while. We might do unconscious bias next week because that's really interesting when you look at that. But I would say this week, leaving you with something. Watch what happens with women and leaders. Because you're open to it, you'll begin to see it. Look beyond what's really going on in Canberra. Watch how this unconscious bias is playing out. Watch how this stereotype threat is playing out. Watch the sabotage by the sisterhood. Watch all this. The opportunities to make change are now. We can do it right now. And I believe it's going to take us women who work on ourselves, because that's one of the other things. You know, we have to release our unconscious bias. We have to release our prejudices. We have to release our judgments. Watch when you're judging other women. Just check, because we do it. Oh, doesn't she look nice today? Oh, I like the way she's done her hair. You know, we do it. We do it all the time instead of staying focused on what that person is doing. And Julie Bishop is a classic example. Interesting enough, I've been asked to come and do workshops in Western Australia. And for those who don't know, that's where Julie Bishop's from, Western Australia. They were just shocked. So I've been asked for 2 schools and 1 organisation to come do workshops over there. So that's amazing. All right, my lovelies, it is almost 8:10, and I'm going to lose the battery in a minute. So have a wonderful week. Watch your own judgments this week. And please share this out. Talk to others about this. Let's make this change. Let's make this change. We have to draw the line in the sand. And you know what? We can, because we're smart, sassy, amazing women. And in our small area, we can. Yes, Sandy. And we need more of that. We need more women to build other women. So catch when you're that unconscious stuff going on, because we can sometimes do that. Just catch yourself. You will. See, we do. I mean, as I said, the conversation in our house in the last 6 weeks since I've been working on this program has changed. We're talking about this all the time. And it's really interesting, Jerry's finding from his perspective as an older person, an older man with daughters. He said, I have no idea that this was going on. So once we start the conversation, these wonderful men, fabulous men are there to support phenomenal women. And, you know, there were 150 men at this presentation on Thursday, and they were very moved. And so, you know, I tend to think this ripple effect is actually changing, and we can get men on our side. Let's walk together, sit at the round table, and let's talk about this. All right. Great to spend time with you this Saturday morning. Please share this. Check out the leadership style, and I look forward to seeing you next Saturday at 7:30. See you then.